there.
Questions? Anybody have questions?
Where did you come up with the names for the characters?
I use a lot of baby books. There's a really good baby book out there that was published around the year 2000, and I forget the name of it. I think you guys turned me onto the website, The Baby Wizard, I think. And it shows not only just names in the way traditional baby books do about what the names mean, but it shows their popularity over time and why they were popular. And so it's helpful when you were like trying to research characters from different time periods to see if you're being, historically correct. And then it's also just fun. So I started, Quinn, I just kind of like that name. I must have heard it. Vivica is a bit obvious, I realize. In fact, somebody once said that to me. I'm like, yeah, sure. But and then Georgie, I was looking for something that I could play with the name. So that's kind of where I came up with those. Thank you, Jen. Let's see. I think I saw a question right there.
Why Ohio to Texas?
Say that again, Ray?
Why Ohio to Texas?
Why Ohio to Texas? That's a good question. I wanted Quinn to notice things about Texas and about the environment. And if she grew up there, she wouldn't notice them. And so that was me just doing kind of a writer's trick to have a reason to be able to describe her environment more. And throughout the book, the book is set in a fictitious town called Hill Springs. You can probably guess it's sort of a riff off of the Wimberley Dripping Springs area, which I set the book there because that's a dark sky community. And if you are in a dark sky community, you can actually see the stars at night. So I wanted to set it there for practical reasons because of the fact that I wanted Quinn to be able to see the stars, but also too, I wanted her to be able to then enjoy how diverse and quirky that not only Austin but that area is. And if she lived there, she wouldn't notice things. So that's kind of great question. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you put this much work into something, do you find like I need to take a break, let the creative juices settle, or do the wheels turn for your second book?
Absolutely yes to both, actually. Because I think anybody that works with words knows you first get something on the page, you have to walk away from it to be able to evaluate it. And also you get tired. It's a process that takes energy, even though you're sitting. It takes the mental energy, so you do get tired. So I did have to always walk away and come back and walk away and come back. But, excuse me, I always say that when I'm not actually at my desk, it's percolating. And one of my tips that I give to other writers when I talk with other writers is that a great way to make the best use of your writing time when it's limited, as we all have very limited free time to do the things we want to do, is I try to think about it at a time ahead of when I'm going to be working on it and just let it marinate up there. And so, for example, I find when my best marinating happens when I'm trying to fall asleep. And I'll think about, okay, this is where I ended this scene. This is what I need to work on next. I'm stuck. Why am I stuck? Let's think it through. And I'll let the movie play in my head a little bit and just kind of play it out and work at it and not worry about solving the problem. Just be like, let's just think about it while I'm going to sleep. And by the time I get to sit down and write the next night, something is ready to come out.
Do you get concerned about losing that thought overnight, or anything?
No, I don't worry about that. I used to, but I don't. And here's the reason why. That initial thought wasn't important. Like what exactly I saw in the movie in my head was not important. What was important is that my brain was starting to figure it out. And then when I sit down, at least I have something from what I'll remember something. Not everything, I'll remember something. And then when I sit down, I'll get started. And then once you put your fingers to the keyboard or pen to paper, and really get into it, then more ideas come out. And usually what ends up on the page is probably different than what was in my mind before usually. But it's just a way to get started, that next step. Yeah, this one.
How long did it take you to write this book?
Oh, that's a good question. So this book, it's a kind of funny story. So as you all know, Brooke startled me with this thought of writing the book. It took me probably about a year of playing with thought before I actually knew what I wanted to do with it. And I did other work in the meantime. And then I got this email pop up in my inbox from Writers League of Texas, who I've been a member of for many years. And they have an annual manuscript contest. And then the email was a reminder that the 10 pages that you send in and your synopsis would be due in 30 days. And I was like, huh. 10 pages, huh? Synopsis? I can do that. And so I did. Sent it in, didn't think anything about it. I also sent in something I've been working on for quite a long time, an adult novel. And I sent in this one out of whim to get the feedback. Because that you get a nice critique with everything. And so I thought that'll be the value. Maybe, hopefully, I'll get some traction with the other novel I've been working on for a long time. And then I'll get some critique here. So I get nothing of it. A couple months later, I get a note in my email box saying, congratulations, your adult novel has been a finalist in its category. And there's several hundred people that enter this. So like, top 5. I was like, wow, I didn't win, but I don't care. That's great. That's awesome. It's like, that's telling me I should keep writing, right? That's giving me feedback. I need to keep going. So this is great. And I yelled, I was like, Brooke, guess what? This is so great. And Brooke's like, yay. And then about 10 minutes later, I get this other ping from the Writers League, and it's got almost the same header. I'm like, oh, did they send it to me twice? And I open it and it says, congratulations, you are the winner of the manuscript contest for your genre of middle grade. And so like, rock! But then I was like, I guess I better write the book. And so I did. I cranked it out, and that was all right before COVID hit. So I cranked it out months before COVID hit, and then there was COVID, and then I continued working on it over time, and then once we put it into the final editing stages, that was probably about a 9-month process that we did. So, yeah.
You know, some of my authors, like to read, and a lot of them like set themselves a goal of so many pages a day. How does that fit in? I mean, what do you think about that? That sounds sort of mechanical to me, but how does that?
So I use different goals because for me, that feels too arbitrary for me. But it works great for a lot of people. And I think it depends on the person as to what motivates you to put your rear end in the seat and do the work, right? I have a different approach because, you know, I work and I've got kiddo and family and other obligations. It's not always that easy to pick the same time every day to write, which is another trick a lot of writers do. So what I do is I look ahead and think about when am I going to be writing, whatever that might be. And sometimes that's short bits, right? And I put it in my calendar as a meeting. And so and I call it work. And it's like, I have to work at this time. Maybe Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I have to work. And so I put it in my calendar, I call it work. And then I do that trick I mentioned before of just thinking, what do I want to tackle? And I just write as much as I can before I need to stop on that. But I find that combination of respecting it as work and then also doing that kind of pre-thinking ahead of time is how I make the most use of my time. But some people, that is what they need. Some people need that target of how many words in and how many pages out. For me, I find I'm paying too much attention to those numbers and not enough attention to the story when I do it that way. But I don't discount that is a great method for some people. Yeah. Lori.
Kind of going off of that, do you find it works better for you to write in order from start to finish or sort of jumping around?
For me, it does because of fiction. I think that it's some people work well jumping around. But I'm an outline person. I really feel like you need to have a sense of where you're going. Otherwise, not only can you end up meandering into places that make it hard to figure out what to do with that material later, but also it just helps you think about what am I going to write next. So I do write in order because I find that if I don't, I don't feel like I know what to put in the paragraph. And what I mean by that is, I might know what the character's doing, but if I don't write in order, I don't know those little details to plop in there. And then later, when you go back, and this is something that I would counsel all writers on, is to know that you are going to take many, many, many passes through your manuscript. But when you go back through, then I can go in and be like, ooh, I can add this in here, and I can play with this there. But for some people who think differently than I do, they need to do that more free-form way of getting things down, and that's fine. But what I think I try to tell people is it doesn't matter if you're an outliner or if you're a free-form, what they call pantser, seat of your pants kind of writer. The main thing is your first pass through is you're getting the stuff from here and you're plopping it on the page, right? You're just getting it out. And then by doing that, then you can go back and look at it and see what do you have and what do you want to do with it. But it's really, really, really hard to work on your work when it's sitting up here. You've got to get it down on the paper. For me, it's a lot easier if I start with a plan, but you don't have to, but you've got to get it from here to on the page to have something to work with. So I like expanded your question. I hope that's okay.
How much character development did you put into your characters? How much did you think about them? And how would that compare to different age ranges or different genres of fictional writing?
Oh, that is a very good question.
See, I told you.
Yes, I should not have doubted. A lot. And in fact, that's kind of what all that beginning thinking before I even started putting, fingers down to the keyboard was about, is who are these characters? I actually usually do my character development work freehand on note paper and good old fashioned pen. And it's kind of all over the place. It looks like a brain map. It's like I'll be writing something and write something over here. And so that's a very creative process for me that I just let go. And I'll pull in art and I'll pull in just all sorts of things, like what does this person look like? I'll grab pictures. I'll think about what they do, what interests them. So I'm a big fan of the massive character development, especially though whenever you have an ensemble in the book, because it is so hard to distinguish characters if you don't give them those differences, and especially a group of friends. And in this book, there are a lot of students who have a role in the book, but you're not going to get as deep with them as you are with the three sisters. And so how to make each of them distinct in some way is tricky. There's probably a good, over a dozen kids in this book. And so they all need to be seen different. They can't look like cutouts that are just, student A and student B and so on. So the only way to do that is through character development work. But to your question about, was that more for this genre? No, it was more for the number of characters. So I would do the same work and have for my other genres as well, including my picture book. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I know that you've been a writer of adult fiction or literary fiction.
Mhm.
Did your process change at all, given that you're writing to a younger audience? Do you feel like the process was still your process?
I had to employ my beta reader more. So one of the things that Brooke helped me do was test to make sure I didn't sound like an adult pretending to be a kid. And that wasn't something I had to do with writing my adult fiction. But I absolutely had to check with writing to this age group. And especially this age group, I don't know if y'all noticed, but they kind of are afraid to tell you what they think about what they think. So it was really important that I double check that. So that was probably the hardest thing. And actually, I went back through and made a decision after writing the entire book and getting the full book down. It was in third person past tense, and which is how I typically write my fiction. And I felt too removed from the character. I was having a hard time being a 12-year-old kid. And so I decided I need to switch this up. I rewrote the book. Editing, not necessarily rewriting everything. But I rewrote the book in first person present tense in order to get that immediacy of how kids are, and to be able to try to force myself to think more like that age group. It's like I have to say I in order to get there. And I think that helped. I think it brought some of the voice into it. I know Aaron, that helped when you was like that. So that was something that I did differently. That is probably, I'm not saying you wouldn't do that for adult fiction, because actually a lot of people in adult fiction have just as much challenge with voice. But it was something that worked for me to address that.
Are there certain techniques that this age group find more appealing than adults would, or vice versa? Like you had a pun in there, like people this age like puns more than adults, or you shoot metaphor or more, or is it how long you go on for something? So if you rewrote this, if this was adult fiction, the same scene, what would be something that would appeal, but a child would reject?
Right. So for middle grade, pacing is very important because keeping the story moving, and it's important for every book, but for middle grade, it's really got to move along. And so that was something that I had to work quite a bit, is how to bring all the description in and keep the pacing going. The other thing that I think would be a different technique for middle grade, not different, but a kind of a key technique, is again voice. you know, the kids want to hear something that sounds sort of like how they speak, but again, not you trying to pretend to be them, and you have to just sort of be a kid again.